welcome back to another edition of the Dirty Verdict Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Peter Taft, joined as always by co-host Bill Ogden.
Hey.
Why does Bill get to go first this time?
First this time with Bill.
You always go first.
I felt that. And joined by Kyle Herbert.
Thank you, Peter.
OG host.
There you go. Who do we have today?
We have Justice of the Peace Judge Steve Duble.
Happy to be here.
Say that right? I pronounced that right?
You got it.
Excellent. It's a big picture thing. It's like JP courts, or if you think you're in civil court or county court, civil district court, certain rules, you're just like, yeah, that's obvious. Everyone knows that's a rule. But if you think that applies to JP court, think again, because it is it's almost like Louisiana's civil law versus common law in Texas.
I think Peter's suggesting that you guys just make the rules up as you go along.
Wow. What stuff?
Actually, fair.
It allows us to. So the rules, they're obscure. I didn't know about them. I was representing some pro bono work in an eviction court a few years before I ran, right before COVID. And I go in with my interrogatories and my counterclaim and, following the rules that I'm so familiar with. And I got schooled pretty quickly that those don't apply. There's a specific rule in the 500s that says all the rules of civil procedure outside of the 500 rules don't apply in JP court unless the JP says they apply.
Yeah. And that's TRCP, Rules of Civil Procedure,
Yeah.
500. So if you get a case in JP court, you got to hit those 500 rules, and those are the only ones that matter. Or the local rules of the court. Do people publish their local or their kind of practices? Is it like you got to...
There's some JP local rules that get voted on by the body of JPs, and they're not very long. It's like 5 pages long.
Yeah. Okay.
Nothing real specific.
Okay. So scope of court, the jurisdiction of the court. Everyone knows that forcible entry and detainer, also known as eviction, is the exclusive province of the JP courts.
Right. It can be a multi-million-dollar commercial case. It's got to start in JP court. We just don't enter anything on the damages on those big cases because our jurisdiction only goes to $20,000. But as far as deciding right of possession, that all has to go through JP court.
And is it a appeal de novo, or for non-lawyers, meaning everything's reset to county court?
Yeah, you start all over if you perfect an appeal, and it's as if it never happened.
But at that point, someone's already been evicted, or a company or an individual?
True.
Yeah. So a lot, even though someone says, well, I have a right to appeal, but if someone's been evicted, it kind of ends itself on its own if someone's out of the house or the building.
As a practical matter, yes. I did implement a policy following a holding out of Dallas, and some other JPs in the state have also issued this policy. It's the only writ or the only appeal that you have to put up money to take it to the next level into the registry of the court, and it's in the 500 rules. That Dallas court found it unconstitutional. I followed that holding. A couple of the JPs have followed it. And if you file a valid inability to pay, then that perfects an appeal. And if the higher court wants to require them to pay rent during the pendency of their case, they can do that. But I don't require them to pay anything to get to the next level if they have a valid inability to pay.
Okay. Other areas are, I think you said debt is 50%?
At least. I think I currently have about 6,000 pending debt lawsuits, and it's all consumer debt, mostly credit card or third-party debt, or vulture debt, I call it. But Texas law allows them, they stand in the shoes of the original creditor. So that's a big part of it. And then Class C misdemeanors, traffic violations, highest fine's $500. There's some oddball stuff, like some of the JPs help out on the mental health docket with the probate courts. In fact, I have a mental health docket tomorrow. It's only a couple times every other month that I do it, and that's people seeking furlough if they've been involuntarily committed and they want out early.
Is that in the statute or some statute that has to go through JP?
Yeah, but don't ask me to cite it. But no, I don't know that there's a statute that says that it has to go through JP. The probate courts are just so overloaded that we do it. The less busy JPs do it to help out the probate courts. It's not that much time.
So if I get a moving violation and a misdemeanor under $500 in West U, there's a 50-50 chance you're going to throw the book at me.
No, because if it's a Westview police officer,
Not
you're going to be in Westview court, and you better get your checkbook out.
It's tough.
And if it's issued by a constable or a sheriff,
But what if I
it could end up in my court.
So Southgate, I could end up.
Only if it's issued by a constable or a sheriff.
All right, cool.
HBD doesn't go through there.
No, HPD all goes through municipal court.
And offline we talked. The prosecutors on those are staffed from the DA's office, Harris County.
Yeah.
For the JP stuff, yeah, the DA staffs it. For the stuff in municipal court, they have municipal prosecutors.
But the ones you deal with are Harris County DAs.
Yes.
Got it.
JPs don't have to be lawyers, correct?
Correct. I think there's a few that aren't in Harris County. And I think a lot of the rationale behind that is there's a lot of places throughout the state where they just don't have enough people to serve the position. And there's been talk of making it a requirement, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime
I'd
soon.
like to double the salary of JP so you have more candidates.
I wish you were a legislator.
I'm glad. I wish I was now. Right now, I wish I was too. It's based on some of the stuff they've been doing.
So I was going to say, I don't know. I'll emphasize this. You do not have to be a lawyer to be a justice of the peace judge presiding over potentially multi-million-dollar evictions of a commercial.
Yeah, but again, you're not providing over the damage amount there.
Right.
You're just presiding over the right of possession.
You can sign a search warrant too, correct? As a JP.
We can do certain magistrate duties. I do some warrants for animal seizures. I think I was starting to list off all the things we do, but in addition to mental health, we do some dangerous dog cases and animal cruelty cases.
Oh, I thought you were talking about animals having seizures. Okay. Makes more sense.
So every once in a while, I'll sign a warrant to have a dog seized.
All of Bill's dogs are on Zoloft, and so sometimes they kind of tweak out.
Yeah. So my point being, for the residents of this precinct that we sit in, very fortunate to have not only just a lawyer, but someone with a ton of real world experience across the board. Pretty unique.
So I've been in front of a JP a few times in my life. Didn't enjoy it at any point. So this is going to be a question that I hope doesn't offend you. Why did you want this job?
Yeah, I was going to ask you that earlier, and then I was like, man, I might have missed it. He might have said it.
I actually I made reference to doing that pro bono work in an eviction proceedings that the friend of my daughter's got me involved in, and I stupidly agreed to do it, and I was down there with another young lawyer, and we're in suits, and it was a very crowded courthouse right before COVID, hundreds of people in the courthouse, and people would come up to us and beg us to represent them. I thought, sure, we're here, we'll do it. We didn't even get their names. It wasn't very smart. And that's where I got schooled on the 500 rules.
And you were reminded of your malpractice.
But some of those we took to appeal, and we got good results for the client. But it struck me that here we have all these county facilities all over the county, and all these people going through crisis that are in desperate need of interventions and social services, and nobody's there matching it up. So that's sort of the vision I have, is trying to match people up with social services. If we have to evict them, do our best to keep them housed and connect them with resources. We work closely with United Way and a bunch of other people in town and the county to do that.
Do you stream your proceedings?
I don't know. There's a link, but it doesn't work for any of the JP courts. I'm not adverse to it, but we do all of our stuff hybrid for the most part right now, except for jury trials. And we're about to do the criminal stuff or traffic stuff by hybrid, where you get a notice and it'll have the Zoom link, and they can come in person. We don't know till the day of whether they're going to come by Zoom or in person. And you got a lot of people that don't really know how to operate Zoom, aren't real sophisticated, but at least we've got them there, is my attitude. And my courthouse being downtown, it's very expensive to park there. So I think it's real important to offer the Zoom aspect.
Yeah. Has there been any thought of moving your office outside of downtown for access?
I don't know if there has been, but it probably wouldn't be a bad idea, because that building I'm in is probably worth a lot of money. I share it with Constable Rose, and it's about 5 stories, and it's 1 block from the courthouse, but they're about to spend some money fixing it up.
And Minute Maid too, right?
Yeah, we're right by Minute Maid. In fact, we can't have dockets on the days that the Astros are playing, because it's $50 literally to park within a block of the courthouse on those days.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah,
That's the day that I settle my hearings so that people on the other side can't show up.
I think the Bill Ogden sponsored JP live stream channel sounds like a great idea.
I love Peter and I. Kyle doesn't do it. He's too busy reading. But we watch almost every morning. I watch whatever's on the live streams, and I just put it on the
In the civil courts.
Yeah, well, civil criminal is way more fun. But especially if it's trial. Like first trial I come to, I usually just sit and watch it, keep it on. And then I can't remember the judge's name who he's like real TikTok fan.
I know you're talking about Fleischman.
Fleischman or Fleischer.
Yeah, David, I think.
Yeah, I know he streams on TikTok 24. He punches the time card and it's on there, and it's very entertaining.
I have seen him a couple times, and the whistle gone viral, especially
the bow tie, the energy that he has, and you can tell he cares. It's just fun to watch.
It's kind of fun watching him deal with like kind of boneheaded defendants. What's even more fun is him dealing with like a boneheaded cop or a boneheaded prosecutor. He's like, really? How could this be probable cause?
So he's crossing the street.
Are you kidding?
He'll straight up say,
yeah.
He's like, he's looking at the prosecutor. They're like, here's the probable cause report. He's like, so crossing the street while black. That's why he like, and then like the defendant will say, sir, he's like, you're not losing. Don't say
yeah. You quit talking right now.
He's like, yeah, I got this. And then he just goes back. And
yeah, it was great.
I saw that one. That was
extremely entertaining.
You could, yeah. All right. We need to get you a live.
Yeah. I think it's just a webcam and somebody that can set it up.
And luckily, we have our favorite in-house Navy SEAL.
Yeah, Josh.
Happy to do it pro bono. He's a lot of pro bono.
What kind of cases in your court end up going to a jury trial? And how many jurors do you get?
Marilyn Burgess's office does all the jury pools for all the JPs, but for other courts, they get a notice when they're pulled for jury duty to go to that JP court. For my court, it's real easy for us because we can just pull them off the wheel and send our bailiff over. So about once a week, we do jury trials in the afternoon. I don't think I've had a jury trial last more than 3 hours. And I always promise that we don't even pick the jury till 1. We don't even get the panel till like 1. And we pick them by 2. And I promise them they'll be out of there by 4:30. And if things are going slow,
does it have to be unanimous?
It has to be 5 people. And
5 out of 6.
Yes.
5 out of 6.
5 people under 20 grand. How much time are you going to give me for voir dire?
I usually suggest 10, 15 minutes.
Per juror?
No.
Fix the panel?
But surprisingly, a lot of people, and I view my job as to help a pro se litigant get through trial because they don't know what they're doing half the time. And a lot of times I'll explain to them, this is your chance to talk to the panel, and this is how it's going to work. The first 6 people that don't get struck are going to be on the jury. And you might want to ask questions like, have you ever had a case where you're suing your mechanic or something like that? The kind of case they have. And most of the time, pro se people just don't even bother asking the jury anything. I also, if there's a lawyer on one side and not a lawyer on the other, regardless of whether they're plaintiff or defendant, I'll let the lawyer, or I'll make the lawyer go first so the other side can watch and see what kind of questions are asked. And then I might ask a few questions.
I was going to say, can you do the whole thing by yourself if you...
Yeah, in fact, you can interrupt, and I do it all the time, witness and ask questions and
Like
interrupt.
a federal judge, you can comment on the evidence and everything.
Yeah, well,
That's not a fun one. It's not a settlement.
If it's in the 500 skills, if he can do it.
If it's not in the 500s,
he can.
No, my belief in having pro se litigants is that I want them to walk away like they were heard, and I want them to walk away like they got to convey what they were seeking to the jury. And whether they win or not, at least I helped them do that. And I explained to the jury that I'm not taking a side here. If I'm jumping in to walk them through it, it's just so you will know what it is they're asking for.
Yeah.
But it's the jury that makes the decision.
I mean, just want justice to be done, but not unfair to one side or the other.
Yeah, in fact, I rarely grant motions. They call them motions for summary disposition in JP court. I don't know why they don't call them motion for summary judgments. I rarely grant them because I think a lot of times a pro se litigant will feel like they got railroaded or they didn't get treated fair. I want them to be heard, and if I see a serious one and it looks legit, I'll have them come in and we explain everything to the pro se litigant. Because if they just got something in the mail saying the thing had been summarily dismissed, they're going to, and I think this was something Nathan Hecht is really concerned about. If you read his State of the Judiciary every year, is people lose faith in the judicial system when you do that.
Do you appoint lawyers?
If you'll work for free.
I want you to be. I want to go on record and say right now, Bill loves working for free.
Well, we talked about it. South Texas has a clinic. There's the what's the name of it?
Lone Star Legal Aid.
Lone Star Legal Aid's in our court on evictions, and then HBA started a new program modeled after the one we started with a friend of mine, Fred Krasny, is a retired lawyer, used to be head of the Fort Bend Bar Association. I nominated him for the Harry Reasoner Award, thinking there's not a chance in hell he'd get it, because they always give it to a big firm lawyer. And I was shocked to find out he's getting it. And I'm going to Austin in a week or two to watch that be presented to him.
And that program that you nominated him for?
I nominated specifically for the award for all his years of service, but selfishly to shine a light on what we're doing, and excited that he got it.
And the program that you set up here that he's involved in, what does that involve?
So when I'm doing my eviction docket, if I sort of sense that there might be room for a deal to be made, like either the person can come up with the money in a fairly short amount of time, like a few weeks, and the landlord's willing to work with them, or the landlord's willing to wait out a rent relief application, because Harris County still does give out some rent relief, and there are some charities that still give out rent relief, then I'll send them to work out a deal that will reset it for a few weeks, see if they can meet this payment schedule. And then if they don't, we'll have a Rule 11 in place. They come back. Sometimes those agreements involve waiver of appeal, but I typically won't do a waiver of appeal unless they've got counsel, because it seems like such a basic right, or unless I have a really firm or good understanding that they understand what they're doing. But it's a good win-win deal. And that's what a lot of landlords want, is they want the certainty of when they can get possession. And they'd much prefer that to a situation where they could be appealed and stuck in it for months.
How long do I have to be a resident of a hotel in order to get the rights such that they have to evict me?
I don't know. I've had some hotel type arrangements, but it's usually weekly rent. I think I might have had one that was daily rent, where it was like a motel. And I don't know that there's a threshold. I had an odd case today that was an assisted living facility. Yeah. So they're being paid to provide social services to the person. And he's also on a voucher. And I'm just sort of scratching my head because it's not your traditional lease. But we did all we could to help that guy. But I pick up the phone. I'll call the social worker. We called the Salvation Army social worker that he works with.
Bill's been squatting at the column door for months.
I've had La Condor evictions.
Was it Roald Dahl's daughter?
I can't remember who it was, but it was a running joke each time the property manager would come up from La Condor, and I'd see how much the rent was. I'd say, "Is this the penthouse?" And each time they're like, "No, it's not the penthouse. It's just a 1 or 2 bedroom."
So there was a lawsuit where the wife of the author of
daughter Roald Dahl, James and the Giant Peach,
was it was a district court case. They'd sued her to try to get her out, and they couldn't.
It was not a small amount.
Yeah, she wouldn't leave.
Side of
it was not a small amount of money.
I wonder if I presided over her original eviction.
No, it was like 60 or 70,000.
Yeah.
When they filed.
Yeah, but I might have presided over the possession part.
Oh man,
it had to have started in
exactly. And we were like, how long could we live in a hotel before they were like, get out? And also, do they just you lock yourself in? How do you get food? All things Bill and I are going to explore in person at some point.
Yeah, we got a field trip for the podcast.
Okay, so one of the questions Kyle had was the jury trial one, and then what types of cases are usually tried? Are they the consumer?
I've had oddly 2 or 3 Metro cases, and no offense to Metro, but they way overkill. They bring a lawyer, they bring a paralegal, they bring an expert, 2 staff members.
PI case?
Yeah. Against a pro se client, and I think Metro's won almost every time. One of them
worst
was a pretty silly case. It turned out the guy just likes to ride Metro to kill time, and he's got a senior card that you get to ride for free. And he'd been on a trip up to the airport and left a computer and was claiming that it was Metro's fault and he needed his computer back when he's the one that left it there. But it came out in cross-examination that he had no purpose to be going to the airport. He just likes to ride.
Some people just like, hey,
in mechanic stuff, things like homeowners,
mechanics lien.
HOA stuff.
HOAs. I don't know anybody that's a fan of HOAs.
I'd rather jump off a building than be involved in a lawsuit regarding a homeowners association.
I see you sitting.
Why would y'all have those on as issues?
100%.
On their not paying the
No, usually it's a small claims like the HOA will be suing to collect a judgment for what they claim is owed.
some small amount. I mean,
Usually it can be big amounts. And they want all their attorney's fees a lot of times too.
So, sorry, I was going to say the jurisdictional limit is 20 grand exclusive of attorney's fees.
I wish I had my book in front of me. I think it is exclusive of attorney's fees. I wish I could double check that real quick, but I think it is.
We'll look it up. We'll put it in the show notes.
but it's a de novo appeal to the civil. It would be county court at law.
County
where
court
those
at law.
go.
Yep.
Do you have to petition that, or automatically it's accepted?
So if you file the appeal bond or a personal bond or an inability to pay, and say the inability to pay is not challenged, that perfects the appeal. And even though we're not a court of record, we send a transcript up to the higher court. I don't know why, but I've actually heard some of the judges on that court say that they don't look at it purposely because they don't want to know what happened and they want to be fresh and looking at the facts, because you can argue new things, you can present new evidence, it's a whole new lawsuit.
How big is your docket?
It's pretty busy. Like it varies. So I'll do, like today I did evictions. I'll do a day of debt cases, and we get just a ton of no-shows. So that's one thing we're trying to do with these notices is really try and get our default rate down, because a high default rate is indicative of a system that's not really working.
Yeah, and so so do you have that up there?
Yep.
Most people, any normal lawsuit, like in district court, has this thing that's kind of hard to read. It's, you've been sued. You should get a lawyer. It's not very user friendly. It looks like something that was probably written in the 70s and it hasn't changed. So Steve his court has one that is much more user friendly.
Yeah, it's got like QR
I
codes.
still use the traditional one. This I just slide in there
On top,
with
yeah.
it. That takes them TexasLawHelp.org or South Texas or Lone Star if it's an eviction. Or we got a grant from the National Center for State Courts that funds our eviction diversion facilitator, and that one takes you right to her intake. And we actually proactively, or she does, will call the litigants and text them in advance of trial, urging them to come and finding out what's the situation, what help do you need. And then we have, I don't know if I have the list of them, but we got like 20 agencies we work with that do different kinds of social services. We have another grant we got from the Rockwell Foundation that actually went to Connective, which is a nonprofit that funds a supplement to the National Center for State Courts grant that puts a benefits person in my court and Judge Lozano's court. And there's a lot of people out there that are housing unstable that are entitled to benefits that are on the table. They just don't know about them, and they hadn't filled out the paperwork. So that's what that Rockwell grant does.
Are the federal grants that y'all rely on, are they still good?
So the National Center for State Courts, it's a nonprofit. Nathan Hecht was on the board.
That's probably,
and that's why he wrote that.
Then.
It's why he wrote the article. It should take more than 15 minutes with an op-ed when they first kicked off this program a few years ago. And when I read about it, that was one of my priorities is coming in. The first thing I did is applied for that grant and teamed up with Judge Lozano to do it together. And we got it, and it funds this professional that's full-time in my court and a different one in Lozano's court for 100% for the first year, all their expenses. And we have this load of experts at our disposal. And they come down and do court visits and help us get our processes right. And it covers, I think we just got a renewal of that grant. It covers 50% of all those costs for a couple years.
And the reason I was asking, I know a lot of federal grants have been gutted.
Right. No, this one was not. Neither of those were affected by it, luckily.
Good.
So the idea globally is that you're encountering people who need help. Obviously, they're being evicted or they have consumer credit card debt. And so
Or tickets they can't pay.
yeah, that's right. And so y'all are trying to kind of match where the people are with where the resources are to help them hopefully get out of that.
Yeah. In other words, my strong opinion is this. It's called the People's Court, and it should be the People's Court. And if you're just going to have JP's rubber stamping the apartment association and the bill collectors' work, that's not justice. And I do my best to provide access to justice and even that playing field. And if it involves giving them a Texas Law Help guide, I don't see a problem with that. That's not giving legal advice. I'm giving them legal information and giving them the resources they need to represent themselves. And there's a lot of people in this cycle of poverty that I think these courts have, over the years, become sort of oppressive. And we hope to do things to break people out of those cycles.
Any aspirations to be on a different bench? County court or district court or something like that?
Supreme Court?
I have no desire to be a judge of a court of record.
That's the thing. So
They write stuff down.
you said that the court of record, there's not like most people think of courts where the court reporter's there typing everything that everyone's saying. You don't have those in JP court.
No. Every once in a while, if there's something really egregious, like I had some guy basically confess to something that was pretty outlandish. Even though I'm not a court of record, I decided I'm not going to use the standard judgment on this. I'm going to sort of type out what he said. And at least if it goes up on appeal, maybe somebody will look at it and think to ask those questions. But usually I just use the forms. And
So what's in the transcript that you transmit?
oh, it's just the paperwork. So it's just, I guess if on the higher courts they wanted to look and see what happened, they can see when the petition was filed, what was in there.
I gotcha.
But they're not
There's no
bound by that.
transcript.
They call it a transcript, but it's really just the paperwork in our file.
Gotcha.
What would you advise lawyers who are coming to your court as far as someone who's maybe new to the practice? Like, what would you advise them to do to get up to speed on how to operate there?
Look at the 500 rules. Look at TexasLawHelp.org, and don't be a stickler for details. That's I think part of the philosophy of
Most of the lawyers
be a lawyer in these courts. But
No, I was going to say most of the lawyers I know are just not sticklers for details. We're like a real kind of footloose, fancy-free profession.
Fun fact: my first jury trial, the mayor's race, was just getting started, and Lee Kaplan was. He ended up being the foreman on my first jury.
Oh, wow. Yeah. From Weiser, Kaplan?
Yeah, he's now with somebody else.
It was Smizer.
Smizer. Sorry.
He's with somebody else now. Cameron and the firm.
They merged with, I think, a firm called Steptoe recently.
I also had another case involving what was one of those metro cases where the head of HGAC, I don't know if you remember the HGAC, they decide where all the federal money for transportation and infrastructure gets spent for this whole region, including funding Metro. And the head of HGAC ended up being the chairman or the foreman of that jury.
What's the craziest one you've had, like case or proceeding you've had so far?
Oh, people fighting over dogs, haircuts. There was.
Hey, Bill, you have a cause of action for that haircut. I've said that 1,000 times.
There was
Someone should be held responsible.
There was some real estate sorority that had an annual meeting at some hotel in the Med Center, and the whole issue for the jury was that the food and the party didn't seem as good as what was advertised to them. But there were pictures on Facebook of them saying how great the party was and all that, so that it didn't go over very well with the jury.
Well, Bill has been trying to get the Dirty Verdict podcast sued. Maybe someone will sue us.
Yeah, take us in JP court. That'd be great because then we don't have as much liability. We're looking at.
Well, if we're splitting up a $20,000 judgment, I'm in for like $100, and then the rest of you.
I'll pay the bond.
You'll pay the bond.
Yeah.
What's the bond? 20%?
I don't know. What do you know?
For the appeal bond?
Yeah, how much?
So the appeal bond in my court for evictions, I do 1 month's rent. And for civil judgments, it's twice the amount of damages awarded. And if no damages are awarded, it's $500.
And is that something in the five?
That's it. That's in the statute. The other one for evictions, we have discretion to set the appeal on where we want.
Dang,
That's wild.
You get on the hook for
40 grand.
worth of bond.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen.
Not Denise, us, because we don't have any.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, how about on the creditor, the debt stuff? Do you all have any new programs to help people with that?
We do. We actually, in fact, it grew out of a Texas Supreme Court advisory committee recommendation that they wanted OCA to do this, and we reached out to Texas Appleseed with the report and said they'd published articles that they wanted somebody to do something like this, and I said, we'll volunteer to do it. Our court will. So they did this program for debt collections where we sent this document here that takes them, QR code will take them to an answer packet, explains to them how to file an answer, what their rights are in debt collection and how it works. And I wish I had that data with me, but I want to say we improved, decreased default rates like 20%. I mean, it was very significant. And that we're still studying it. That's still going on because the program is officially ended, but those cases that were in it haven't all come to fruition. And once they do, then all the data will be complete. And we're hoping that's something that can get rolled out to all the courts. Another thing we did, we got a Texas Bar Foundation grant from to open a resource center. I applied for the grant and got about $20,000. And we worked with the Harris County Law Library to create a mini law library within our courthouse that's all geared towards the kind of things going through our court. So we have all the Texas Law Help forms printed for people who aren't very computer savvy. And we have like 5 now, public use computers with printers that are free that people can go in, and all sorts of resource materials and books that the law library helped us curate. And we're working on getting law students in there to man it and law firms to get in there and do their pro bono hours. And they're not really taking on representation, but somebody comes in, they can set them up on the computer, sort of point them in the right direction, give them the right form.
Nice.
Yeah. So if there's a young lawyer, let's say at a big firm or any kind of firm, wants to get involved in some pro bono stuff, because it sounds like you're at the tip of the spear as far as helping people, should they contact you or should they contact one of the groups you?
They can reach out to the court, and they can also go to HBA. And as far as South Texas, you just Google it and go online. There's an intake form for the Sorrells Clinic. If you got a debt case and you think you can qualify, you have to be pretty poor, I think, to qualify. You can do their online application there.
All right. That's at the Randy Sorrells Clinic?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. We're going to have Randy on in a couple weeks.
Oh, great.
So we'll ask him about that.
No, they got what you call a moonshot grant from the Access Justice Foundation of well over $1 million to fund this program.
Nice.
Yeah.
One thing I like that you said, because we're in this such divisive climate right now, but Nathan Hecht is recently retired Supreme Court justice who most plaintiff lawyers take big issue with because of some of his rulings.
I argued in front of Nathan on his last day on the bench.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He got, I think it was like one tier. Yes,
But it wasn't for your client.
I think I was his second or third to last argument. And I think he got up and he was like, this is the one I've been waiting for.
So yeah, plaintiff lawyers disagree with some of his or most of his rulings, but you mentioned that he is actually a very big supporter of access to justice for underserved people.
He is considered a national champion in this arena, man. He is I agree with you. I used to do plaintiff's work. Worst day of my life was when $1 million plus verdict I got in Brazoria County with Bob Green got taken away and rendered with no duty. Like we didn't get to remand.
Stand render.
Yeah, I know what it's like to be a plaintiff's lawyer, and I didn't. I shared those views. But once I started running and reading all his stuff on Access to Justice, he's amazing on it. And
it hurts to hear.
Yeah, so it's just access to justice, meaning everyone should be able to.
Yeah, it should be should be a bipartisan thing. There shouldn't be.
It should just be one big party.
Yeah,
that's what all my friends who are landlords say.
Well, that's the other thing we were talking about is I had a pro bono case where a guy was being evicted, and I just all I did it was
Guy, which one of your sons?
not yet, fortunately. It was a guy who's a lawyer who'd bought a bunch of rental properties, and so he knew how to do it. He was doing it himself, and he was wealthy. And he was so mad that I was just like, no, I'm going to make you just do everything the
All requirements.
I got to know these 500 rules, and I was like, yeah, you're going to follow it. And he was so PO'd because no one just
Ever did it.
simply asked him to follow the rules. That was it.
Oh, there's a new bill that may be passing that sort of takes away all those rules.
Yeah, well, hope not. I mean, there's some obviously everything needs to be tweaked a little bit with the time, but there are rationales for why those rules are there.
And Constitution too.
Yeah, is it a constitutional change? Is it?
Well,
I think it has to be real.
well, I mean, it seriously erodes access to justice. The bill that is already come out of the Senate, and I don't know if we've gotten the House version yet, but it's probably going to be voted on soon.
Got it. Okay. Any more JP questions? Where
do you fall on school vouchers? No, I'm just kidding.
Do you and Eric Carter have like a annual softball game, your court versus his?
No, I know he does a golf tournament every year, but no.
Sounds like you got a pickleball tournament next year that you're planning.
Yeah. So Eric Carter's district.
See, we have same boundaries, but it's odd. The only thing, like evictions are the only one that really has to be filed in that area or in the precinct. All these other cases, you can file them in any of the 16 JP courts, and it's incumbent upon the defense, except for traffic tickets. And I think, traffic tickets. But all the civil cases, it's incumbent upon the defendant to move to transfer venue. And when you're talking pro se people, few people know to do that, and few people do it timely. So I can sometimes get stuff that's out of state, and the people aren't even involved in, don't live in my precinct. Neither of them do, and none of the witnesses are. But it's stuck there if the defendant doesn't file a.
You can't sponte prove it.
Wild.
Interesting.
And this has been an education. I don't spend nearly enough time in JP court.
Okay, come on down. You can volunteer.
I maybe I would.
I even got a parking space for you.
Oh, all right.
If you, Kyle's going to call you like, Astros games today or here to one. So you're just like, it'd be out of there in an hour.
He shows up at 4:30.
4:30. Who's pitching? I'm here to volunteer for 30 minutes.
Yeah. No, so can you manipulate on a eviction, like a commercial eviction? Can you manipulate the venue and just file? If you
No, I'm sorry. Evictions is the exception there, and traffic tickets. Evictions have to be filed in the precinct where the property is. In fact, we had a trial or a long hearing, and I had lawyers on both sides, and it was a commercial space, downtown cigar bar or something like that. I can't remember what it was called. And anyway, we had a full day hearing. We recessed, and they were going to try and work it out. And they come back for the second day of hearing about a week later, and the other side didn't show up. And we called them, and we're like, "Why aren't you here?" And they're like, "We realized that the property is not in your precinct." Nobody had caught it. Usually the cops, but somebody would have caught it, or we would have caught it. One of the lawyers would have caught it. It was like a block outside, so we'd wasted a whole day. But
that's awesome.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so where would you, if someone wants to find out more about what you're doing? I know you've got Steve Duble.
SteveDuble.com.
Sorry, yeah, Steve Duble, Duble is the last name.com is your personal site. Any other?
No, if you go there, there's a bunch of links to the press that we've gotten on all our access to justice efforts and grants and the work that we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you for doing it. I appreciate it.
All right.
And
Thank
you're
you all.
up for re-election in
March of 20, whatever next year is when it was next 26 is the primary.
Well, have your campaign treasurer reach out to Bill.
I will.
unlimited bill. Remember, it's unlimited.
Unlimited Bill.
We have a Dirty Verdict Super PAC, and it's for JP, Justices of the Peace.
Why is it called the Dirty Verdict?
No one knows.
It was named that before I joined as a host.
Kyle and I had several planning meetings at various places around this district that we're in, and ultimately,
I think one of them was actually at the column door.
it was, yes. And someone threw that name out there, and we're like, sounds good. And no one knows really what that means. We like to think of it as like a tainted, like someone got a verdict, but there was some jury misconduct or something, but it just kind of There's nothing dirty about it.
It's very clean.
Yeah, I think this is one of the few. Usually, people will have a few curse words, but I think this is the cleanest version. This is
I didn't curse all night.
Sorry to have disappointed you on that.
no. That's
If anybody wants to throw in some profanity, now's the time.
Once Peter said PO instead of pissed off, I was like, all right, I'm like, curse.
yeah. I try to. I prefer no profanity, but I'll. It's
I was
This close to Easter, Peter's not going to curse.
I was gonna throw in a bullcorn, but then I was like, you know what? Let's not get too risque.
Yeah.
bull.
That's
That's
for
bull C. I don't say bull corn. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much. I really
Enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
This was fascinating. I hope everyone learned from it, Kyle.
I learned I learned everything.
So yeah, so if you like this, go to Steve's website if you want to see. There is a ton of resources on there, so I'd recommend it. But with us, if you want to get all the latest episodes, like and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Facebook, TikTok, Spotify. What did I say? Instagram, Facebook, and new LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Welcome to 1987.
We're getting up for.
Are you on the new one, Blue Sky or whatever they call it?
I am.
I'm not on it. I think I have an account, but I hadn't used it yet.
I have no idea how to make it work, but
Neither do I.
We're this summer. We're gonna do a little retreat, and we're gonna get on everything. Pinterest is my.
That's interesting.
is this
Yeah.
part of our cross country road trip? We're
Yes.
gonna do this as we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can get a MySpace too.
Yeah, we're gonna do.
Winnebago.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll see
All right,
you next.
thanks, y'all.
Good night.
Enjoyed it.
So
Happy